so yummy. Yum. Okay, let's get started. Let's see here. I wanted to talk about this beautiful quote that my friend Raven gave to me. I'm gonna read it, and it's pretty interesting because we have the ability to be a space or a mirror for individuals to see who they are or look in the mirror. And there's a way to do this, and intentionally do it, so that people can see their self. And it allows individuals, hopefully, to grow from seeing their own image. So they can either see what they like or they see what they don't like or whatever it is. And then to do it intentionally. So let me pull up the quote real quick. Okay, so here it is. It is on my phone. It says, "It is because a mirror has no commitment to any image that it can clearly and accurately reflect any image before it." In other words, the image, there's no commitment to what it should show up. It's just a blank canvas. It's just there. It doesn't have any judgment. It doesn't have anything. So it's just a blank canvas, and it allows you to see in the mirror the image that is reflecting upon it. Okay, the mind of the warrior is like a mirror, okay, in that it has no commitment to any outcome, and it's free to let form and purpose result on the spot according to the situation. Okay, so the warrior is like a mirror that it has no commitment to any outcome. So in other words, we can have an intention, we can set an intention right into the world, and we can say we want to do this, but the outcome and the way that it shows up, there's no attachment. In that non-attachment, we are able to allow ourselves, right, to show the image to other people of who they are, of what they are. Because the mind itself, right, the mind itself doesn't get attached to the outcome that that it thinks it should have. In other words, it's okay with how the outcome looks. It's not committed. It doesn't need a specific result. It doesn't have to have a specific outcome. It just allows the moment to unfold the way it's going to unfold. However the outcome shows up really is due to the reflection that you hold as a spiritual warrior in your mind. In other words, being a blank canvas for an individual, allowing yourself, right, to be completely neutral and open-minded. When we allow ourselves to do that, we allow ourselves new ideas to come in. And as those new ideas come in, we don't stay attached to them. We're not committed to the way the outcome should look. We know that we have an intention. We know that we're headed in a specific direction, but the way that it shows up may be different than the way that we thought it was going to show up. And having that non-commitment to any outcome allows us to be the mirror for the individuals that show up in our life, and allows it to reflect back. The reflection is the reflection that the individual will see in themselves. Not in you, but in themselves. Practicing this is not easy, of course. Nothing I do is ever easy. And the result sometimes comes out distorted. It's amazing what you find out about individuals when you allow yourself the space to not be attached to an outcome. When you allow yourself to be free-flowing, when you allow yourself to be open to whatever's going to show up. And as you allow yourself that space, the images that show up are the images within them, the reflection of themselves. Now, they may not simultaneously with duality. Good morning, Wise Becky. How are you? Cheers to you. I'm glad to see you on here. I'm doing this pretty early in the morning. But I love that quote. And I love that quote because it allows us to recognize that we are mirror images of each other. Now, intentionally doing it, it's different than sometimes we don't realize we're doing it. But when we do it with intention, with every relationship we have in our life, we will see the true colors of an individual rise up and out of them. Now, being unattached to an outcome is not very easy, right? Because we have these attachments to how things should look. This gets very difficult for individuals to understand. Most individuals, and even myself at times, because there is an attachment, right? There is attachments, and we do have attachments to things. We have to be intentional. Absolutely correct. Yes. When we're intentional with this energy, it's very hard for some individuals to truly understand what it means to be non-attached, to not be attached. And I don't mean non-attached to the individual as a human being and see them as a person in front of you, but not attached to the outcome and the way that things will flow. Okay, so in my own life, right, the reflection of what's coming up, I am not attached to any outcome. Now, this becomes difficult. It became difficult for individuals in my life just recently. Why? Because I have no attachment to how it's going to flow or how it's going to show up. Now, this is a difficult thing in relationship. And in fact, I don't even know that you can have a committed relationship when you are being a spiritual warrior and allowing your mind to be in a neutral space and unattached to the outcome of how the relationship will end or be. And perhaps it takes an individual who understands the concept of this, the concept that there is unconditional love, and that the attachment to love and the way it should look becomes the suffering of the relationship in the end, and that it's the outcome should be free flowing. In other words, you choose in because you choose it. If you choose out, okay, that's fine, no worries. There should be, if it was a relationship that was without a pointed outcome, then the relationship should be able to separate in harmony. If it doesn't, right, it's because one of the individuals is connected to an outcome, and that's okay. That happens, right? The non-attachment is the hardest thing for individuals to understand, and especially in relationship. And I had this question the entire time because I was in relationship, being the operative word, trying to figure out if it's possible for two individuals to have non-attachment to the relationship. I personally have no attachment. Now, and what I mean by that, I mean that I'm not attached to the outcome. It doesn't have to end up in some big grand thing where we're spending our entire lives together forever and these things that people attach themselves to, but rather allowing the relationship to flow like a stream, right? Allowing it to flow, allowing it to unfold naturally without this, I need it to look this way and the outcome to look this way. No, it's like you have free will. You have the choice to exit the relationship at any given moment. There's not an attachment to the way it should look. You have the ability to create and co-create within the relationship, and there's no outcome. The outcome itself should be the unfolding of this natural energy, but not necessarily did that show up. You know what, Wise Mackie, I would love for you to call in. The only reason I don't do call-ins in the morning podcast is because I have Facebook Live streaming as well. So I have Facebook and it's live on camera. And that's the only reason why I don't do call-ins. But I would love to have you, I don't think you sent me an email, but send me an email. We can, even if you want to chat before, and we can do just the voice podcast where you call in, and I want to have a guest on here. So that's something that I'm going to expand, is the guest, and perhaps it's just the voice call in and not the live stream, Facebook live stream, but just the actual audio. So please, let's do that. I would love to have you on as a guest, and perhaps relationships is something we could talk about, something that I've never been able to master. However, been able to master my own understanding of myself in relationship and understand how I get to shift and change and mold myself. And what you're saying, people must understand how your concept works first, which is to first gain emotional maturity. Ah, I love that. Yes. Yes, emotional maturity is really, that's what I wanted to say. Thank you, Ice Becky. I want to hear what you have to say all the time. You always have really good stuff to say. And it sort of helps me. I think I need a, you're kind of like my friend Lisa. My friend Lisa has this, good morning, Andre, how are you? My friend Lisa has this a great ability to sort of decode what I'm trying to say and put it in terms that make sense probably for more people. And me, I'm trying to like articulate it and put it together in a way that makes sense. So I agree with you. Emotional maturity is really super important to understand the concept of non-attachment. And sometimes people that's my phone number. Okay, awesome. I will write it down before I exit out of here, and then we can text message. That would be amazing. So, understanding in relationship. Now, I think that there is a possibility of making this work in relationship. I'm not 100% sure. And the only reason why is because I think people have this idea, especially in the Western world. We've sort of all been trained about what love is, and it's sort of this fantasy idea of love. And, you know, if you see the movies, romance movies, all that kind of stuff, they have this same sort of flow and ideals. I mean, we're raised here in the Western world on Disney movies and princesses and all this stuff. And so from the woman's perspective, perhaps having a man come on a chariot and, you know, whatever. I'm not saying all women feel this way. I'm just saying that that's how they've programmed sort of the storyline of relationship. And in the program and the storyline of relationship, it's sort of distorted the way that relationships really happen, because that's just, I mean, it's really the best scenario possible. And we know that that's not life. Life has its ups and downs and ebbs and flows, and it's super complicated and hard. And then you have a whole other individual with a different worldview, different perceptions, different ways of seeing things in life, and different upbringing, and parents that may have been involved or not involved, and how they treat their mother, and how they. So the coming together is very different. It's very complex, and I get that. But we can't learn unless we actually jump into it. And so for me, I was willing to try to jump in and see what happened. Not necessarily the way that I would have wanted it, but learned a whole bunch from a short span of time. And allowing myself to be in the non-attachment to the outcome. Now, absolutely give us an illusionary sense of what relationships should be. You are correct. It's very unrealistic, and people get caught up in the illusion. Yeah. And then understanding how do we co-create. So I have this, you know, I even said, I don't even know, and I will say in relationship for myself that what happened is I said, you know, is it possible to be in relationship with the non-attachment? You know, not being able, like, I'm not attached. You can come or you can go. And it's not because I don't have love for an individual. It's because I want people to choose in because they choose to choose in. Not because there's this, oh, please stay, that kind of thing. But people want to feel wanted or needed. And if you don't give them that, somehow they feel like they're not important. So self-worth and emotional maturity is super critical for that. To find another individual that is completely confident in who they are, knows who they are, understands who they are, and is okay with understanding that they have the ability to exit the relationship, and that neither party needs to beg the other person to stay or whatever it is. But then understanding that, is that possible? Are there people out there that have this understanding? And I don't know. And I don't even know that if a relationship could survive if that wasn't part of the relationship. So if you need nothing, then do you need a person there? I don't know. Is it possible? I mean, I think these are bigger questions, and I would love to explore that with people on my podcast about relationships. I think most people want to be in relationships. Yes, to begin using our emotional intelligence to create a realistic sense of self is the key. I love that. And Weiss Mackey, I'm actually in my master's program. One of the classes we're taking is emotional intelligence, and I'll show you the book that we're reading, and I'm going to read some of this book on my podcast and then go over it, but it's called Healing Through Dark Emotions, The Wisdom of Grief, Fear, and Despair. It does talk about the alchemy of dark emotions, which I think is critical as well. It's part of emotional intelligence. It's part of us being able to go through the alchemic process of understanding that we can utilize those dark emotions and that we can transmute them, transform them, and into something that's useful. And that's really, like, for me, I call myself a spiritual alchemist. That's what I do internally. How do I utilize the information that's internal to me, the uncomfortable things, and then how do I shift it, mold it into something that's meaningful in a masterpiece? And so emotional intelligence is moving through those dark shadow sides. Good morning, Robin. It's allowing ourselves to move a little closer to our authentic self without denying any part of ourselves, which is important. I think for the longest time we've been like, just forget about the anger, just forget about all this stuff. No. I would say if you do that, you're going to end up exploding like a volcano. And I'll tell you right now that I'm really in the process of understanding my own fire energy from a relationship sexuality standpoint. To understand how sexual energy is utilized through that fire. And doing it in a way that I can redirect and hone and focus that energy into meaningful things. So the fire energy around that and understanding how to utilize it. What does it mean for me? Because if we allowed, good morning, Tony, if we keep that fury, which is what it felt like for me, fury, right? Locked in a cage. Well, for me, it's going to come out in an explosion like a volcano. And then I'm going to spew magma all over everybody. That's not a good thing. We don't want that. So a good spiritual friend of mine, I had to talk to her. I was like, I have this fury inside me that all of a sudden just got ignited. And it was through sexual energy. And I understand that. And through the sexual energy, I said, how do I hone that in? What is it that how do I utilize this energy inside me that I had never felt before? And how do I redirect it, And it's baby steps. And I sort of like the way that she told me, you just allow a little pieces of the fire to sort of spew out a little bit, cut slits, and allow it to come and flow out just a little at a time. Because I'm not the best at fire energy. I will just explode is what'll end up happening. And that explosion is not good for me or anybody else. So how do I redirect the energy, what we call our courage, our divine will, and redirect it into something that drives power and force in a way that's not harmful? So internally, at the core, at the root of that sexual fire, and allowing it to rise up through the system to my heart, right? It's sort of allowing the Kundalini energy to come up and through. It's allowing that fire energy to move through me. It's a hard energy for me to work with. Some people, they naturally know how to utilize this particular energy, but it's good because I'm growing as a practitioner myself and always growing because I'm not perfect. I'm, human. I'm stuck in this space as well. In order to gain self-mastery, it's absolutely necessary to master the impulses. Yeah, my impulses were to So I'll tell you a story. I was sitting there watching this video, right? And I don't even know, it was 5 minutes in, and I literally had to stop myself from getting, there was like a lighter or something there, and throwing it at the TV. But that's not me, right? I'm chill, I'm mellow, I'm pretty cool, like collected. But something inside me was like and I just wanted to throw, and I was like, where did that energy come from? What is that? And it was that, like you said, it was impulse. It was, I don't even know how, like, I had to stop and go, whoa, what was that? It was new energy. So right now, I'm in the midst of working with something new, something different, and trying to understand it, trying to work with it rather than against it. Try to understand how to ground into it and move it up through me so that I can support myself, for one, before I go crazy, and support myself in this newfound fire. Energy uses impulses to manifest itself. Yes, exactly. To understand how the logistic works is the key. Yeah, so I'm reading something too, and I'm not sure, Wise Becky, did you do a program? What was this? Is, I guess we can ask this when you're on a podcast. I'd like to know, like, what is your background and all that kind of stuff, because a lot of what we're reading in our master's program is a lot of what you talk about. The program is amazing. There's a lot of readings and stuff like that that I could recommend that you may just be interested in as well. But yes, in terms of the emotion, the emotion itself is the energy to drive action. And so our emotions are what drive the action. They allow us to move. But then understanding how it works, right? So that emotional maturity is, how do we use the emotion? You can call me when you can. Okay. Okay, I'll call you and then we'll figure it out. Sounds good. But to actually, the emotion itself drives action. So we feel it internally. But the energy that the energy that I felt, or the impulse that I felt, the action was almost, it was, I would say it came from an immature place, because I didn't even realize that I was like, I mean, I didn't know what to do with it. I wanted to throw something and act as a child, was how I feel. It was almost like maybe a temper tantrum. Let me just throw something and act crazy. So the temper tantrum, right, is what showed up in a way, and didn't know how to use the energy. So I'm realizing that I'm a baby in certain elements, and it's okay. To be the fool, or to start from beginning, to start from scratch, to be from the beginning all the way through the journey of understanding how to utilize certain energies. And that's the beauty of the work, is always being a beginner. I'm always a beginner. I'm always starting over again. I don't know what I don't know. And there's a lot of things that I don't know. In fact, I know nothing. I have to tell people, like, I don't know anything. And it's funny because people will start to know me. Good morning, Laura. People will start to know me, and they'll hang on every word I say and then try to, well, you didn't say this and now you're acting like this. I'm like, I am human, number one. I am not perfect. Okay? And Laura, are there any readings? Yeah, I can suggest some readings, but I'm not perfect. So looking for perfection, don't look to me for answers. Look to yourself, look to God. I don't know anything. I don't know your life. I can only hear what you have to say about your life, but I don't know. I can't give it to you. Nobody can give you anything. You've got to understand that it comes from your internal self, right? And then when you point fingers at individuals and act as though it's them, it's you being unable to take personal responsibility for the image that you're seeing around you. We create the images around us. That's why I started off with the mirror image, when somebody's unattached to an outcome. Hello, Spirit. How are you? I'm good. How are you? Fondo Grim. Laura, Are there any readings? Yes, the readings. There's this book that we're reading, and this is for my master's program. It's called Healing Through Dark Emotions, the Wisdom, Grief, Fear, and Despair. But I have other books that I can recommend as well, like Kundalini Rising. That's a pretty good one. There's the Christ Consciousness 13, or the Christ Blueprint 13 Keys to Christ Consciousness. It's one of my favorite books. It's how Spirit and Coffee got started. Have you forgotten, Natalie? I have forgotten what? Have I forgotten who I am? Sometimes. There are, I can't remember the book that I'm waiting on, the title of it, but I can give that as well. There's also, I'm trying to think. I think it's Siegel. Did some research on emotional intelligence, I believe it was. But there's a bunch of different articles that I can show you or tell you guys about that. If you want to read, you're absolutely welcome to read them. You might have to purchase them online and stuff. Sometimes when you're in a master's program, right, they give you this information and you know it's free to you, but everybody else might have to pay for it. But I can show you what articles I'm reading and share with you. I'm also going to start having, do you get messages for people from spirits? Oh, I see what you're saying. I'm sorry, Laura. I'm like, there's tons of readings you could do. So Laura, it's not that I get a spiritual message for people. Well, I have, yes, I can say that I have, but I'm not like a medium or, someone who's like, oh, this person. And when I speak to individuals, there are times when I can hear a message for that individual and I'll share it. But it's basically and typically when I'm engaging with an individual more intimately, basically, rather than separately. If I have an intimate connection with them, just based on what comes up and arises, I might have a message for them. And that's just because we as human beings all have the power to do that because we share common threads. Like we're all part of the same consciousness. And so because of that, we have a thread that we share with each individual that we connect with. And sometimes that thread has a message. And yes, sometimes it comes through and sometimes I hear things where I'm like, oh, this, oh, that. But a spiritual message as in though, like I see other spirits and like the dead and all that kind of, no, that's not me. It's not. I'm a realist in a lot of ways too, optimist and opportunist. Maybe you picked up and absorbed someone's energy and you need to release it. Yeah, thanks, Tony. I did, and I will say in relationship, I was picking up the anxiety as soon as that energy sort of exited my space. My harmonies came back and was restored. And I realized a lot about myself and boundaries and who I am as a person and where I get to set those boundaries. And that's another part of emotional intelligence. Probably didn't realize it, didn't understand. Hello, Fandogrin. So again, I just highly recommend that you understand that you have the ability to be in this space of non-attachment and that you can be a canvas for an individual to see who they truly are if you allow yourself to and be intentional about it. And then also being able to see your own self through the image as well. It could be a two-way mirror as well, where you're seeing your own image and your own self and understanding what your limit is, because in the image, you can't hold that image, that neutrality forever. Doesn't work all the time. We're human. Drop into, again, this space. And I can say for me, what I learned is that boundaries are critical. I need to understand how to lay boundaries out. Boundaries are important. Good morning, Theo. Boundaries are important to be set. Why? Well, to protect your emotional state and well-being. Without those, you have no well-being. And literally understanding what that means for me. How do I create boundaries that are supportive of protecting my emotions, protecting my personal space? I will say that in the if we looked at it from the tarot perspective, that my Queen of Swords protects my childlike innocence. Queen of Swords being the one who has clarity in articulation and communication and saying this is no, and setting that up, and then allowing the boundaries to be set so that there's this separation, so that my mind can have the space, so that my heart can have the space, and my emotions can have the space to bloom and blossom. But without that, okay, without that, I become emotionally unstable. And that emotionally unstable place, right, causes chaos. Chaos for me and chaos for everything around me. So setting those boundaries and allowing myself to retreat and understand that. But I understand that now, so that's good. So it's you getting clear about what your boundaries are, what you can handle, what you can't, and being able to communicate that without feeling like there's going to be repercussions. And if there are repercussions, asking yourself, is it worth me and this relationship or not? But those boundaries need to be set and understand what that means for you. So important. Natalie, I want to follow you on Instagram. What is new? Okay, so it's Spirit and Coffee 1. If you see it, it's up here. Let's see, Instagram, Spirit and Coffee, at Spirit and Coffee 1. That is my Instagram. There we go. And I'll send it to you. There you go. Okay, so there you have it. Really, I think this is a great topic to talk about. I do also think relationships is a good topic to talk about because most people are wanting to be in relationship. And if they do, then how do we create those powerful relationships that are going to support us and be supportive mutually? And that takes an understanding of spirit, mind, body. Been very, find people who I'm connected with spiritually, find people who are connected with, mentally, maybe not physically. Find people that I'm connected with physically and mentally, and maybe not spiritually. But, it's hard to get the connection of all three. So, but that's super important. And feel like this time around, physically, perhaps, spiritually, perhaps, and then mentally, not so much. But still rocky on all of it, right? Which is okay. I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and I don't need to be. I've said that a million trillion times. So there you have it. So I hope you guys have a fantastic Monday. I'll see you tomorrow. I'm going to read more into the dark emotions, and I think this is something that I want to read on here. And then also seeing about getting my professors or some of the students that I'm going through my program with or past students to come on and be guests, as well as anybody likewise, Mackie, I'll be giving you a call. And having you guys be guests on the show would be amazing, just to get some input and understanding from your perspectives as well, because they're just as valuable. All right, so there you have it. I love you guys. Have a magnificent, magical, marvelous Monday, and I will be seeing you guys tomorrow.